Have you ever wondered what games you should keep or you should lose? Find out here at Purge Reviews.
Here's Splat Attack's Reptar Rampage. This was a Kickstarter expansion, I guess you would say. You can see I'm inside. I'm going to take a look at this. The box is very, very flimsy. This is not a good quality box whatsoever. When you pull it out, you're going to get a couple things inside. The first thing you see is a rule book, which we'll take a look at in just a moment. Okay, so here's the miniature. I'm going to show it to you first. He's humongous, especially compared to everything else in the game. Mine's been painted up. Yours won't be painted unless you do it yourself. But I'll kind of pause on here. It's a big miniature. Is it the best miniature in the world? Probably not. But it's good enough for this game. I think it looks really cool, and it's on the table. And having him out there on the board, you know, kids like this. They like seeing this big Reptar out there as he's going through. So he does a pretty good job of that. So here's this tile. If you're familiar with the game, you're going to be putting polyomino pieces on here to be the splat. And when it's covered up or you can't place the field, then all effects they're out of the fight. So he's got a big radius here. He's got a humongous amount of stuff to kind of cover up here. And, you know, these are funny because they're the splat things, but you just want to be careful because these bend. I wish these would have been cardboard, but they're like paperish. They're nice to just kind of sit there and you put things on them. But with kids, you always want to be careful because they're going to kind of rip these off. The good thing is if these got knocked off or something, it doesn't really matter because this part right here is all that really does matter. So Reptar's going to be kind of like an NPC character. He's going to be moving around. And when you hit him, he's going to move towards the other characters. If he ever has splat all over him and there's no super cool points left, the game will end immediately and then you'll just score. That's kind of how he's going to work. Here you're going to have a setup over here and the rules for Reptar and moving him and kind of how he does. And then taking cool points and moving him around. Then you can see the rampage that'll be going on here that you will have. Very easy to kind of add him in. He adds a different aspect to it because like this NPC character, you're kind of moving. And when you throw something and you hit him, you kind of get his attention and it goes through. The rules are very clear. I don't know that you want to play with him every single time, but he is a little fun of an addition. So he's going to take up 4 spaces on the board. So he's kind of big as he moves around. Now anytime you throw food at him, as though he was a rival figure, which is fine, all of the food text is ignored on him, and he will have enough range to reach one of the 4 spaces in order to throw him. So he's going to take up 4 spaces himself, but he can reach any of the 4 spaces around him. So if he gets hit, then you add a splat to the board. That'll be really good. And when you're playing with him, there's going to be 2 additional cool points, super cool points in the stack. And he will just start out in the center of the board and be ready to go. And then some of the cool points will kind of start closer to him as you're going through. So a little bit different of a setup. Probably take you two minutes, maybe a minute to set him up and be ready to go. But he's going to have this cool factor that's going to be on the table. Kids are really going to dig him. So if there isn't enough food splat to put on when he has a direct hit on the board or there's enough spaces, then the throwing character can take a cool point or a super cool point token from the Raptor if it's available. If the throw was not a direct hit, he takes a face down cool point from the Reptar and places it near his character board. And so there's a little bit of a thing going on. But for the most part, you're going to put extra food splat out on the board, which will help the other players as you're going through. Now, if the food splat tokens will completely fill his grid, then he's going to go on what's called a rampage. You return all the splat tokens from his grid. The throwing character can choose a cool point or a super cool point, and then he's going to move around the board and start throwing things, and you're going to place 2 more cool points out. So the rampaging is really going to mess things up, and it's super cool when he just kind of goes berserk all over the board. So overall, what I think about Reptar's Rampage for Splat Attack, I think it's a really cool addition. I think once you kind of get used to the game, I wouldn't throw him in at first, but if you're looking to shake things up and the kids have played a couple times and have the rules down pat, adding him in and just watching the kids play off of him, kids are always going to want to attack him and interact with him, and he can go on those rampages, which is really, really fun. Especially if you know something about the Nickelodeon at all and you like this character. Super fun to add in and adds a lot to the game. Just the wackiness, and I don't want to say chaotic nature of it, because you're actually controlling what he does by hitting him and those kind of things. But it does add an extra layer of rules. So if your kids are struggling with the game, I don't know if adding more rules in is going to be good, but if they've conquered it and kind of ready to move on, this is super fun. I like doing this, and it's just the right amount of coolness with this guy kind of throwing around, throwing food at him. And sometimes the kids will just kind of gang up on him, and that can be a lot of fun.